Hello, Pastor Russ here from City Church, and this video is really replacing what we lost last Sunday, January 7th of 2024, our first Sunday of the year. We created a foundation, a direction of where we're going as a church, and for technical reasons, we lost that recording, and so this is a summary of what we went through on that January 7th, and really feel like it's important that this foundation be produced and put out there so that we know where we're building from in the future days that we get to gather together. We started talking about health. This year we want to grow in all dimensions, physically, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, financially, grow in our strength to walk through different challenges of life, that we would really put on the likeness of Christ and grow in that likeness. And sometimes growth isn't fun. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it doesn't look like what we think it would look like. And that's kind of where we're going today. It's important for us to grow and not be deformed. There's many churches out there that are gathering, but they're deformed. And the Apostle Paul actually addresses in his letter to the Corinthian church in 1 Corinthians, he makes this statement that's really kind of an unknown verse. In 1 Corinthians 11, verse 17, he says, "But in the following instructions I cannot praise you, for it sounds as if more harm than good is done when you meet together." Can you imagine God saying that about City Church or any church? That he would say, you do more harm when you gather than you do good. And a church is the byproduct of a collection of people, a corporate gathering. So really, we can't just point a finger at an organization or something in the past. This rests on us individually. Would God be able to say about me that it's best if I don't meet with anyone because I'm not growing, because I'm not fully formed, because I do more damage than good? May that never be the comment about each of us, or about our corporate gathering, or about City Church specifically. It really kind of sounds like a biblical reason to not go to church because in that particular gathering they were doing more harm than good. And we don't want to ever be like that. We do have to understand that in this upcoming year of 2024, no president is going to be the answer to our growth. No economy is going to be the answer to our growth. No stock market increase nor decline is going to be the answer to our growth. No self-help book is the answer to our growth. Hollywood will not be the answer to our growth. The educational system will not be the answer to our growth. Greater disciplines and more degrees of masters and doctorates will not be the answer to our growth. What's going to help us not be more lazy, more complacent, have more excuses, stop outsourcing our growth, is spending time in this word and with the author of this word, and that God himself is the word. We need to become not church people, but kingdom people. And the only way that's going to happen is if I truly grow in all dimensions and really understand what that means. And part of that is finding myself secure in a church community. David said in Psalms 92, verse 13, "Those who are planted," key word, planted in the house of the Lord, shall flourish in the courts of their God. If you don't feel like you're flourishing in your relationship with God, I challenge you early this year. Are you planted in a church? Are you faithful? Do you serve? Are you committed to growing, sacrificing, doing what it takes to stop being church people and be kingdom people through our collective gatherings, being planted in the house of God, that we would flourish? Anything that's healthy grows. Anything that's healthy produces fruit, and that includes weeds. A weed can be healthy in its growth. We don't like weeds in our yard or in our garden, but they're healthy when they grow. And so we have to know, what are we growing? Can we not be the kind of church that Paul would say, you're growing, but gathering does more harm than good? You've got to grow in much healthier ways, and we have to learn how to understand what that growth means. Part of growing is getting past the beginning point. The author of Hebrews in chapter 6, verse 16 leaves this for us. "Let us stop going over the basic teachings of Christ again and again. Let us go on instead to become mature in our understanding. Surely we don't need to start again with the fundamental importance. He doesn't deny the fundamental importance of repentance from evil deeds. But placing our faith in God has got to create growth, not just repeating the same mantra over and over. So for City Church, we want to see people grow this year, and part of that is going to be accountability. Part of that is going to be the cliche, holding people's feet to the fire. Part of that is going to be presenting challenges that help us grow. Here's a question. If you might say, I've really been growing in Christ. So here's some questions. Are you mature enough to resolve conflict? Or does conflict still create despair and bitterness and betrayal and stress? Are you better now than you were a year ago at resolving conflict? Do you present an environment that people can come to and know that they'll receive grace and understanding? Or do they perceive that they'll receive judgment and being dismissed? Have you grown in learning how to encourage people to learn from their mistakes rather than remind them of their mistakes? This is all proof that we're growing. And when we grow, what's the goal? Well, the goal is to become like Christ. When we grow, we don't want to become more like our fruit. We want our fruit to show that we're becoming more like Christ. And some of the areas that Christ grew in aren't comfortable to us. Here's the question. What does it mean when we grow like this? Can you grow when you're feeling completely helpless? See, in Matthew 27, it says this. This statement was made to Jesus on the cross. Come down from the cross if you're the Son of God. Why are you looking helpless? See, in that moment, there was another statement made that went like this. He saved others. He can't even save himself. The problem that people didn't understand in that statement is how true, how accurate it was. He couldn't save himself because he loves you so much. Because his love to restore our relationship with the Father was so important that he couldn't save himself. 12,000 nails couldn't have held him on that cross, but he chose to let 3 hold him on that cross because his love was so compelling that in his helplessness, he grew. In his helplessness, we grew. Can you grow when you're feeling helpless? Can you grow when you are in the middle of feeling like there's doubt, when you're expressing your doubt? Can you grow in that? Or does that make you shrink back? Matthew 27:46, even Jesus himself, my God, why have you forsaken me? How many times in the Psalms does David talk about that doubt? Why have you forsaken me? Why am I living in a cave? Why do my enemies prosper? Why does my sin feel like it's eating my bones and destroying my flesh? In the middle of doubt, can you grow? Can you grow when you are struggling with obedience and honoring the will of God? Can you grow in that season when you struggle with that obedience? Again, in Luke 22, Jesus says this, Father, if you're willing, take this cup. Your will be done. Can you let his will be done when you're struggling with obeying with that will? Or do we take it back into our hands and try to control the scenario and dictate the narrative? See, this is really growing. We all like to grow when there's good fruit to bear and good fruit to show and good reward for the fruit. But can we really grow, become like Christ in these difficult questions? Can you grow by admitting that you struggle with temptation? I think that's a very compelling question. Can you grow by admitting you struggle with temptation? Hebrews 4:15 gives us a promise. We have one who has been tempted in every way that we have. Can we grow more like Christ and not give in to temptation when we're facing temptation? See, this is growth. This is far bigger than I'm seeing more miracles. I'm walking with greater ability to have patience with people. Those are all good fruit, and those are all part of growth. But real growth happens in the trenches. The lessons we learn happen in the battles. The victories we savor are the ones that were the most difficult to achieve. That's growth. And we need to grow. Can you grow in the truth, or is it truth, that His grace is all you need? I ask you that question and I pause. Is it true that His grace is all you need? 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, "My grace is sufficient. My power is made perfect in your weakness." Can I grow in the standing that His grace is all I need? I don't need American Express. I don't need a news cycle to change for me. I don't need to have any part of my life change. Am I willing to say, no matter what happens today, tomorrow, next year, it's His grace that is sufficient? That's growth. Can we really grow in these difficult areas? Another question could be framed, not can we grow, but can you surrender? Can you surrender your personal comfort? Can you surrender your personal ease of getting through life? Can you surrender your excuses? So many excuses. As a pastor, I frequently hear statements like, "Well, Pastor, I'd like to be involved with small groups, but I don't have time." That's just simply not true. That's not a time question. When we start small groups beginning in February of this year, if I were to say to you, if you attend all 9 weeks of small groups, we will give you $100,000. My bet is you'll show up for all 9 weeks of small groups. That's not a time question, that's a value question. But it gives us excuse. It allows us to spiritualize our apathy. And that's not growing. That's manipulating. So often I hear statements like, "Pastor, I drive an hour and then I work and then I drive back home for an hour. I have nothing left." I have a question. If I drive an hour and I work 8 hours and I drive an hour, that's 10 hours. There's 14 hours left in each day. If I sleep 8, there's 6 hours left in each day. What am I doing with those 6 hours? I can't blame it on my kids' sports. They don't have 6 hours of practice every day. I can't blame it on house construction. Nobody goes home and works on their home for 6 hours every. I got to stop looking through my social media scroll. I got to shut that TV off. I got to get off the couch. I got to go find a way to be held accountable for my thoughts, my actions, and my relationships. That is growing. What might motivate us, especially us at City Church, as we gather on a university campus, let me tell you about what's called the Cooperative Institutional Research Program, or CIRP. The CIRP is a survey that's given every fall to over 250,000 college students. Across America, there's roughly an average of 6,000 college students per university. And in that, every fall, the CIRP survey is sent out to 250,000 of those students every fall to get a cross-section of the socioeconomic position of what is the future of our country. In the middle of this survey, it's interesting, in the middle of the socioeconomic survey given to 250,000 university students, there's this question: do you consider yourself a born-again Christian? Here's what concerns me. Every year that this survey has been given out, 78% of the answers are no. I do not consider myself a born-again Christian. 78% of our university students, they're saying, "I do not consider myself as a born-again Christian." The urgency of that can be brought on with even more statistics, and I know statistics can be boring or even manipulated, but let me give you just some bare bones statistics that whether it was Pew Research or Barna Research or Chat AI, they all came within a percentage point of the following statements. 85% of people make a decision for Christ between the age of 4 and 14. In fact, there's ministries out there called the 4-14 window, and the vital importance of getting the message to that age group. From 14 to 24, only 30% make a decision for Christ. That's the future of our country. The next president is not. The economy is not. The young people that are in our universities today that are saying 78% of them do not have a relationship with Christ, and only 30% of them statistically will make a decision for Christ, should start an urgency within us to make our churches growing, healthy, reaching out, setting down my complacency, my selfishness, my consumerism. How can I make a difference with the greatest message ever told? I want to wrap up with this. Matthew 10, verse 1. This is a very important transition in these two verses. And when he, Jesus, had called, important word, his 12 disciples to him, he gave them power over unclean spirits to cast them out, to heal all kinds of sickness and all kinds of disease. Now, the names of the 12 apostles are these. Do you see the transition there? He called his disciples, he empowered them, and now he calls them apostles. That word apostle was not a Hebrew word, it was a Latin word that Jesus drew out of the Roman world and applied it to this situation. In antiquity of the day, the Romans were taking over the known world, and they were going into communities and changing their tax system, their political system, their educational system, building roads. But what they were finding at the end of the day is the people living in those communities were not acting like Romans. And so the Romans made this office called the apostle. And this office of apostle, his responsibility was to go into communities and to make the community look like the kingdom that had sent him, and have the resources of that kingdom available. Jesus called us to be disciples, and then he wants to empower us to win the battle. And when we've won the battle, we're to become apostles to our community, to make them look like the kingdom that sent us. Our home, make it look like the kingdom that sent me. My job, does it look like the kingdom that sent me? The university that we at City Church gather on, are we making it look like the kingdom that sent us? The city of surprise, the Phoenix Valley, on and on we could go. The apostolic age is not over. It's very much alive, and we are falling short of stepping out and stop being church people, become kingdom people, grow from disciple to apostle through the empowerment. And in the empowerment, there's a war. We fight demons. We raise the dead. We heal the sick. Those are battle terms. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. That we would grow this year from being church people to kingdom people, from being disciples to being apostles, to laying down what I love for what I love even more. Will you join us in 2024? I'm not asking you to join a church. Join a series. Join a commitment. Join us for a few weeks as we talk about getting healthy and growing. That we would truly step up our game on every level and become a church that's growing, not in the surface sense, but deeper down inside each one of us, that we really can say a year from now, I am more mature in my understanding, and God would not have to say to us or our church, it's better if you don't gather at all. Will you join us on this journey of growth in 2024?